I'm Allison, 31 years old, and the day I woke up from emergency surgery, my entire life shattered. The first thing I noticed was the sunlight coming through the hospital blinds. The second, a missing piece of my heart, my grandfather's lake house, my sanctuary since I was 5 years old, gone, sold, just like that. And the person who sold it, my mother in law, Elaine, I still remember her cold smile when I confronted her. You don't deserve it anyway, she said with a sneer. You're too sick to enjoy it. Her words hit harder than any diagnosis. But what Elaine didn't know was that my grandpa was smarter than all of us combined. He had planned for something like this, and the look on her face the next day when she realized she had played the wrong hand, it was worth every second of pain I'd gone through. But let me take you back, because this story, it's not just about sickness, betrayal, or greed. It's about legacy. It's about strength. And it's about how one woman fought back when everyone expected her to stay down. Before I share the full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you believe in karma, because in the end, karma always knocks. Pinehurst Lake wasn't just a vacation spot to me, it was where my soul rested. My grandfather Harold bought that lake house when I was just 5 years old. From that day on, every summer felt like magic. It was a beautiful 3-acre property sitting quietly on the eastern side of the lake. The main house stood proudly on a small hill, watching over the peaceful water. The guest house sat closer to the edge of the lake. That's where I used to stay as a child. I still remember the smell of pine trees mixed with the scent of Grandpa's famous blueberry pancakes. Every morning we'd sit together on the porch, watching the fog rise from the lake while the sky turned soft shades of pink and gold. Grandpa would tell me stories about his childhood, about nature, and about life. Even now, his voice echoes in my heart. This place is special, Allie, he would say, calling me by my childhood nickname. It's not just a house, it's peace. And when life gets stormy, peace is what you'll need the most. He was right. Years later, those words would mean everything. 2 years ago, when Grandpa passed away at 87, I was heartbroken. We had remained close even after I moved to the city to work in graphic design. I visited him almost every month, sometimes with my husband Michael, but Michael never really understood what that place meant to me. At the funeral, Franklin, Grandpa's longtime lawyer, called the family together to read the will. I was shocked when he announced that Grandpa had left the lake house to me, only me. I thought it would be divided among the family, but Grandpa had made a clear decision. She's the only one who truly loved this place for what it is. Franklin read from Grandpa's handwritten letter. The others see property value. Allison sees the soul of Pinehurst. That's when I saw the change in Elaine's face. Elaine, my mother-in-law, always wore a sweet southern smile, but underneath it was something sharp, something cold, and that day I saw it clearly for the first time. Michael was her only child, and in her eyes, everything I had should also belong to him, and through him to her. How thoughtful of Harold, she said with a fake smile. Though it seems like quite the responsibility for someone as busy as you, dear, that was her way of saying you don't deserve it. Michael and I had been married for 5 years. We met at a charity event. He was representing his investment firm, and I was handling the design materials. He had confidence, charm, and a genuine interest in my work. At first, everything felt right. The first 3 years were full of travel, dreams, and late-night talks about building a future. But after Michael's father passed away, everything changed. Elaine became present, too present. She began calling daily, showing up uninvited, and slowly involving herself in every choice we made. Michael felt guilty. She's just lonely, he'd say. She means well, but I knew better. And then the lake house came up more and more at dinners. Elaine would drop comments like, family homes should stay in the family, or you barely visit the place, dear. Maybe you should consider selling. Each time I smiled politely, but inside each word felt like a cut, and cuts, even small ones, start to bleed over time. What they didn't know was that I was visiting the lake house often. On days when I told Michael I was working late, I'd drive out there alone. I needed it, especially as something dark was starting inside me. It began with tiredness. I brushed it off, then came the pain in my joints, fevers, and one day I couldn't even hold a pencil during a meeting. That's when I went to the doctor. The diagnosis shattered me. Lupus, an autoimmune disease where my own body was attacking itself. The plan was strict. Medications, constant monitoring, lifestyle changes. At first I told no one, not even Michael. I didn't want Elaine seeing me as weak or using my illness as another reason to take the lake house from me. But the sickness grew faster than I expected. Soon I was in the hospital. My kidneys were failing. Surgery was the only option. And that's when Elaine became helpful. She started organizing paperwork, making decisions, asking questions about the lake house. One less stress. She said one night, selling might be the best choice now. You need money for treatment. But what struck me most was how she said, you, not we. Like my illness was mine alone. The lake house isn't for sale, I said.
as clearly as I could. She smiled again, that same tight-lipped smile. Of course, dear, just thinking of your health. But I didn't trust her, not anymore. That night I heard Michael and Elaine whispering in the kitchen. Their voices were low, but I heard one clear sentence from Elaine. She's not thinking clearly right now. Sometimes we need to make decisions for the ones we love. That was when I knew. Something was very, very wrong. My body was breaking, and I could feel it more every day. The pain, the fatigue, the way my breath became short after walking a few steps. It wasn't just the lupus anymore. My kidneys were failing. The doctors said I needed surgery soon, or things could get much worse. I tried to stay strong, but inside I was scared. And while I was trying to prepare for surgery, Elaine was preparing something else. One afternoon, she came over to our house with a stack of papers. Her eyes looked serious, but not kind. She sat at the dining table, placed the papers in front of me, and spoke gently. I've been talking to our family lawyer, she said, and given your condition, it would be smart to give Michael medical power of attorney, just in case. Michael was standing behind her, nodding. It's just a safety measure, he added. What if you're unconscious and need someone to make decisions? It makes sense, Allie. I picked up the papers. The first few lines were about medical power of attorney, but as I kept reading, my chest tightened. This wasn't just about medical decisions. The document gave Michael full control over financial matters, property and personal rights, everything, including the lake house. This covers more than medical choices, I said slowly. Elaine waved her hand like it was nothing. That's just standard language, dear. It's how these forms are written. No one will actually use that part. But my instincts were screaming. No, something wasn't right. That night I called my oldest friend, Rebecca. She had never trusted Michael, and definitely never liked Elaine. When I told her what happened, she didn't hesitate. Allison, she said firmly, don't sign those papers. Don't even touch them. Get your own lawyer tomorrow. Have him draft a limited medical power of attorney. Something is off. I can feel it. And so I did exactly that. The next day, I visited my attorney. We drafted a clear, simple document that allowed only medical decisions and only during surgery. No control over property, no control over finances. When I brought that version home and gave it to Michael, I watched his face. He tried to hide it, but the disappointment in his eyes lasted just long enough. This doesn't cover everything, he said, pretending to sound confused. It covers what's necessary, I replied. Medical decisions only. He didn't argue, but the silence between us afterward felt louder than any fight. That week, something else happened. I came home early from a doctor's appointment. I was tired and just wanted to lie down. But as I opened the front door, I heard voices in the kitchen. Elaine was sitting at the table with a man in a suit. They were looking at photos of the lake house. When they saw me, they jumped like teenagers caught doing something wrong. The man quickly gathered his papers. This is Douglas Peterson, Elaine said smoothly. An old friend. He's in real estate. We were just looking at insurance options. You know, for safety. Douglas nodded too fast. Lovely place. Tons of value. Just helping with comparisons. After he left, I turned to Elaine. Why are you discussing my property with a real estate agent? I asked. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Don't be so emotional, Allison. We're just making sure your affairs are in order. Stress is clouding your thinking. Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening, and then I heard them again, Michael and Elaine whispering just outside our bedroom. I don't know, Mom. Michael said, she's really attached to that place. Maybe we should just drop it. Elaine didn't miss a beat. Respect doesn't pay for hospital bills, sweetheart. If she truly loved you, she'd want to secure your future. That house is just sitting there doing nothing. We're helping her whether she sees it or not. That was it. The next morning, I called Grandpa's lawyer, Franklin. He listened quietly as I told him everything. Then he said something I'll never forget. Your grandfather, he expected something like this might happen. He was prepared. Come to my office. There's something you need to see. When I arrived, Franklin pulled out a folder from his desk. Inside were documents I had never seen before. Your grandfather was a wise man, he said, and he knew how families can behave when money is involved. Franklin explained that the lake house wasn't one single piece of property.
Grandpa had split it into two separate legal parcels, the main house and the guest house. Both were in my name, but with different protections. More importantly, he showed me the trust Grandpa had created. The terms were clear. If anyone tried to sell the lake house without my direct written signature, not through power of attorney, not through marriage, then full ownership would legally shift entirely to me. All rights from other parties would be wiped out. Elaine and Michael had no idea. I felt like I could finally breathe. Grandpa had protected me, even from beyond the grave. Before I left the office, I made two big decisions. First, I took all the important property documents and placed them in a private safe deposit box. Only I could access it. Second, I asked Franklin to prepare postnuptial paperwork, something that would protect the lake house and any future inheritance from my marriage. Michael could never touch it. That night, when I got home, I found them again. Michael and Elaine sitting at the table with more papers between them. They looked up and fumbled quickly to hide everything. Just going over hospital forms, Michael said, avoiding eye contact. Elaine added, medical bills can be so confusing. I said nothing, but I had already seen the truth. And when I later checked Michael's phone while he was in the shower, the final piece of the puzzle hit me like ice in my chest. He had been texting Douglas Peterson, the same real estate man from before. They were discussing a quick sale. They had photos, quotes, plans, and a message from Elaine that read, remember, this is for the best. She won't even remember signing. I sat there staring at Michael's phone. The screen lit up again with another message from Douglas Peterson, the real estate agent. Let me know as soon as you get her to sign. This property won't last on the market. My heart pounded, not from fear, not anymore. It was anger now. Pure, sharp, clear. They had planned it all. Elaine had used my illness to gain control. Michael had gone along with it, and they had waited until I was weak, broken, to make their move. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know I had already spoken to Grandpa's lawyer. They didn't know about the split deed, and they definitely didn't know about the trust clause. I was holding all the cards, and it was time to play them. The next day, I met with Franklin again and finalized the postnuptial agreement. It protected not just the lake house, but any future property I inherited. Michael would have zero claim, no matter what happened. I also asked Franklin to prepare a formal legal notice for Elaine and Michael. It would make it absolutely clear. Any attempt to sell or touch the lake house without my explicit signature was illegal and would be challenged in court. I held the documents in my hand, shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the truth. I wasn't just a sick woman fighting for her health anymore. I was a woman protecting her legacy, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. Back at home, I waited. I waited until Michael left for work. Elaine showed up not long after. She had a large folder with her and looked eager. Hello, dear, she said cheerfully. I thought we could go over some final papers before your surgery. Just a few signatures. Nothing stressful. I sat at the table and looked at her. Really looked at her. Her polished nails, her expensive scarf, her smile that never quite reached her eyes. She placed the papers in front of me. Power of attorney confirmation, medical release forms, oh, and some documents for the lake property. Just insurance updates, you know. I didn't touch them. Instead, I reached into my bag and slowly slid across the legal envelope Franklin had prepared. What's this? She asked, frowning. Something Grandpa wanted you to see, I said quietly. From his lawyer. She opened it, and as she read, her face changed. The blood drained from her cheeks. This isn't right, she whispered. It's very right, I replied. You and Michael tried to sell my inheritance behind my back. You lied to me. You planned to take advantage while I was unconscious. But you didn't know that Grandpa protected me from people like you. She stared at me, furious now. You've misunderstood everything. We were trying to help. By taking what's mine? I asked. By planning to sell a house that means everything to me? She stood up quickly, her chair scraping the floor. You think you're strong enough to handle all this? You can't even walk without help some days. I'm strong enough to stop you, I said calmly. She walked out without another word. That night, Michael came home late. I was waiting at the table, the same table where he and his mother had sat together so many times, making plans behind my back. Elaine told me you embarrassed her today, he said. I didn't flinch. She should be embarrassed. I don't understand why you're doing this, he said, sitting across from me. We're your family. Why won't you trust us? I looked him straight in the eyes. Because family doesn't betray someone when they're at their lowest. Because I saw the messages, the sale plans, the lies. He blinked, stunned. You went through my phone? I had to, I said. You left me no choice. He tried to defend himself. Said it was just talk. That they weren't really going to sell it. That he was scared and desperate because of my illness. But it didn't matter anymore. I trusted you, Michael, I said, tears finally rising. I needed you, and instead you helped your mother plan to take the one place that made me feel safe. He was silent. Then I said the final words he never expected. I want a separation. He looked like I had slapped him. You're ending our marriage. Over a house? No, I said. Over betrayal. The next day, I moved out. I had already arranged everything with Franklin. He helped me transfer control of all my personal accounts, move into a short-term rental near the hospital, and prepare for surgery without distractions. It wasn't easy. My body hurt, my heart ached, and some nights I cried myself to sleep. But I wasn't alone. Rebecca stayed with me during the hospital stay. She held my hand as they wheeled me into the operating room. And when I woke up dizzy and weak but alive, she was there. You did it, she whispered. I nodded. I was still healing. My body was still fragile. But my spirit, it had never been stronger. 3 weeks after the surgery, I returned to Pinehurst Lake.
I wasn't fully healed yet. My body still ached, and some days I needed help just getting out of bed. But I needed to go back. I needed to stand on that porch again, to breathe in the pine air, to remember who I was before everything fell apart. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, tears filled my eyes. The lake house was still there, untouched, just as Grandpa left it. The guest house, the wraparound porch, the old dock I used to jump off as a child. It all felt like time had frozen in the right place. I walked slowly toward the front steps. Rebecca was with me, helping me along. As I reached the porch, I sat down and looked out at the water. The morning sun was rising, turning the lake a soft gold, just like all those summers ago. I made it back, Grandpa, I whispered. And I could almost hear his voice again. Calm, steady. This place is yours, Allie. It's your peace. No one can take that from you. I stayed there for days, not hiding, healing. I read books, took slow walks, wrote in my journal, and even started sketching again. For the first time in months, I wasn't just surviving, I was living. One evening, as the sun was setting, I got a call from Franklin. He sounded amused. Elaine and Michael have tried to challenge the trust, he said. But I've already filed the response. The court won't even consider it. Your grandfather's documents are airtight. I closed my eyes and smiled. It was over. They had tried everything. Manipulation, paperwork, lies. But in the end, truth won. Grandpa's wisdom won. And I had won too. Later that week, Michael called me. I let it go to voicemail. His message was long, full of excuses. He said he was sorry, that he was lost, that he missed me, that maybe we could start over. But I didn't respond. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some bridges once burned should never be rebuilt. Instead, I moved forward. 2 months later, I officially filed for divorce. The postnup Franklin had prepared made everything easy. Michael had no claim to the lake house, no claim to my future. Rebecca helped me move permanently to Pinehurst. I set up a small art studio in the guest house. It had big windows that looked out onto the lake. I started freelancing again, slowly at first, then more as my health improved. The quiet helped me heal, both inside and out. I wasn't the same woman anymore. I was stronger, more careful with who I trusted, but more certain of who I was. And I knew Grandpa would have been proud. Sometimes I still find small notes of his hidden in drawers or books, little words of encouragement, like breadcrumbs from the past. If life gets too loud, come back to the water. I did. One afternoon, I hosted a small gathering with a few close friends. Rebecca was there, of course, along with a couple of people from town. As we sat on the porch watching the sunset, someone asked me, "Do you ever regret not fighting harder to keep your marriage?" I smiled softly. I didn't lose a marriage, I said. I lost a lie, and I kept my truth. And that's what the lake house became. A symbol of truth, of love, of peace. It wasn't just about walls and floors and deeds. It was about a promise Grandpa made to me, and a promise I kept to myself, to never let anyone take my peace again. So if you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like someone tried to steal what you built, what you loved, or who you are, just remember this: you are stronger than they think, and when you hold on to your truth, no one can take your power away.